A sudden resignation by Jagdeep Dhankhar has everyone questioning what happened, wondering why Dhankhar had resigned. He said in his letter that it is due to health reasons, that he wanted to focus on his health and prioritize that. But the details that have emerged since his resignation letter at 9:25 p.m. last night does seem to suggest otherwise, that this wasn't just a sudden resignation for everyone in the country and for political circles in Delhi, but also seemingly for Mr. Dhankhar himself. Why do we say that? We'll be breaking it down for you, but there are multiple indications, including statements from Dhankhar himself, that seemingly suggested that he wasn't considering resigning, but continuing very much as the Vice President, as the Rajya Sabha chair. So then there are questions about whether this was as a result of some sort of animosity with the central government. We'll tell you why in just a bit. But let's focus on really the kind of comments that came in from Jagdeep Dhankhar in the run-up to that sudden resignation. Not just sudden for all of us, but seems like it was sudden for him too. And just take a look at the kind of comments that came in. Just about 10 days ago on July 12th, you had essentially Jagdeep Dhankhar saying that I will retire in August 2027, which is when his term as Vice President ends technically, or ended. Now, he had said that I will retire only in August 2027 unless there's some divine intervention. This was his comment from just 10 days ago. What changed in 10 days that suddenly he decided to resign, and that too on health grounds? Right after that, if you think that 10 days ago a lot can happen in a matter of 10 days, let's talk about 24 hours ago. On July 21st, the day that he resigned, at 9:30 he resigned, but in the day, it was day one of the monsoon session, he was there as Rajya Sabha chair. And in that particular proceeding yesterday in the Rajya Sabha, he had spoken about the impeachment proceedings against Justice Verma and had said we'll go ahead and discuss the committee that is to be set up for impeachment tomorrow, which means essentially he thought that he would be returning as Rajya Sabha chair on July 22nd today. It was on the same day, on July 21st, that there was also communication that came out from the VP's office saying that Dhankhar, in the capacity of Vice President, mind you, will be visiting Rajasthan on July 23rd. So clearly his office wasn't in the loop whatsoever. Mr. Dhankhar himself, with the kind of comments that he's put out, seemingly did think that he would continue in office. So if it was on health grounds, a well thought out decision, surely, how could he have been making completely contradictory statements not 10 days ago, but hours before he went ahead and put down his paper? So what doesn't add up here? Why is all of these suggestions and speculation that this wasn't a happy, routine, procedural farewell? Well, the simple fact that as a Vice President, there's no farewell address being given by Jagdeep Dhankhar. There's no question of a farewell dinner either. No formalities, none of that, where essentially Dhankhar will be able to say thank you very much, goodbye. Only with that letter is the last communication we have. And interestingly, every single time you see a high-profile leader step down, you will see a flurry of messages from BJP leaders on social media thanking that leader for their service, for their contribution to the nation. For Jagdeep Dhankhar, absolutely nothing. There's been pin drop silence from the BJP. The only message has come from Prime Minister Modi, and that came a whole 12 hours plus after Jagdeep Dhankhar's resignation. And Prime Minister Modi, in his message, essentially put out a thank you message. And even if you look at the post he's put out on social media, there's no talk about Jagdeep Dhankhar's contribution to the country. Instead, it's a very carefully worded post where Prime Minister Modi essentially sends out a message that Jagdeep Dhankhar had received a lot of opportunities, so thank you for your service. That is the message from Prime Minister Modi. Now the government, here's what government sources have told us about all of these questions of why there's no farewell for Jagdeep Dhankhar. The government has said that a farewell is usually held only if the Vice President completes the full term. As you know by now, Jagdeep Dhankhar hasn't completed his full term. He would have in August 2027, cut short by 2 years. And so because of that, government sources have told India Today that farewells are not a norm if someone resigns mid-term. Then there's no question of a farewell address or a farewell dinner. So they're saying that, look, there's been no snub whatsoever to Jagdeep Dhankhar. There is simply no provision for a farewell address in the current situation because he's resigned mid-term. Mind you, there are times when it's happened previously where vice presidents have resigned mid-term has been in completely different circumstances. It's because they've then been elevated to the post of president. For Dhankhar, this is an unlikely situation that he finds himself in as a vice president who stepped down on health grounds and clearly not on the best terms with the government. Let's get you breaking news that's coming in. And the news that's coming in right now, sources telling us here on India Today that Jagdeep Dhankhar actually wanted to admit 2 impeachment notices in the Rajya Sabha. And reportedly, this caught the government completely off guard. Here's what opposition sources are telling us on India Today. That Jagdeep Dhankhar was made to resign because he was planning to admit to 2 notices for impeachment given by the opposition. One on Justice Verma, the other Justice Shekhar Yadav. Both of these were handed over by the opposition, and Jagdeep Dhankhar was going ahead and admitting both of these impeachment notices. This is what opposition sources have told us, that they reached out to Jagdeep Dhankhar and he'd agreed. And this reportedly got the government on the back foot because they had absolutely no idea that this was coming their way. If I were to break it down for you as far as what happened yesterday and the sequence of events that ultimately led to Jagdeep Dhankhar going ahead and resigning, essentially you had a business advisory council, the BAC meet that was chaired by Dhankhar, and in these series of meetings that had happened, there was communication from the opposition that we want 2 impeachment notices. Jagdeep Dhankhar agreed then. And so there was no question of the government being brought in on this. A clear communication gap, perhaps that's what led to all of these questions. Mind you, Rijiju and Nadda had also skipped that particular event. So then that led to questions about whether the government was unhappy. But let me tell you that exact sequence of events. At 1 p.m. Is when, in fact, the first meeting had happened. This was the Rajya Sabha BAC, the business panel meeting, the Business Advisory Council meet that was chaired, as always, by Jagdeep Dhankhar. One round happened at 1 p.m. Right after that, about 1.5 hours later, round 2 was scheduled to happen of the same panel. Now, Jairam Ramesh at about 2:20, just before the meeting was to take place, visited the Rajya Sabha chairman's office, met with Dhankhar to submit this impeachment notice. And that's when the communication went across. At 3:40 is when Jairam Ramesh then announced the submission of this notice on social media as well. You can see it on Mr. Jairam Ramesh's timeline as well. And then right after that, in the Rajya Sabha, you had an announcement being made. We timed it exactly at 4:07 p.m. is when Jagdeep Dhankhar made that announcement regarding the impeachment notice. Not one, not just against Justice Verma, 2 impeachment notices as the opposition wanted. So their demand was met by Jagdeep Dhankhar. 4:07 p.m. is when this happened in the Rajya Sabha. There was a long discussion on it, largely also an address by Mr. Dhankhar on this. Now, was the government caught completely off guard by this announcement by Jagdeep Dhankhar? Well, decide for yourselves, because 20 minutes later, at 4:30, J.P. Nadda, Leader of the House in the Rajya Sabha, Kiran Rijiju, Parliamentary Affairs Minister, both of them skip round 2 of the business panel meet chaired by Dhankhar. Both of them are not there. And so, reportedly, in that meeting, Dhankhar also expressed his displeasure that both the leaders weren't there. You had instead Mr. Murugan present on behalf of the government. Half an hour later, 30 minutes later, Jagdeep Dhankhar says that signatures of 51 opposition MPs on 2 notices are authenticated. So he's already kicked off the process for, in fact, these impeachment notices to move forward. Mind you, in Parliament yesterday in the Rajya Sabha, he hadn't spoken about the committee being formed for this. Right after that, at 7:30, so 5 p.m. is when Dhankhar communicated to the opposition that, look, I've done the necessary checks. At 7:30, Jairam Ramesh reportedly dialed Mr. Dhankhar again. But Jagdeep Dhankhar didn't give him an audience. He said that he was discussing health issues with family and said, I will speak to you tomorrow. The rest, as they say, is history. 9:25 p.m., just about 2.5 hours after that, Jagdeep Dhankhar went ahead and resigned, citing health concerns. So that's the entire timeline. And obviously, there are several questions about what exactly happened in this particular case. I'd like to bring in our reporters also on this broadcast to kind of break down the details that we've picked up from our opposition sources. We've got Aishwarya Paliwal and Piyush Mishra getting us the latest from what the sources in the government is really telling them. Rahul Gautam and Maushmi taking us through the opposition's version of this. So Maushmi, I'd like to come to you on really what the opposition sources have told us right now, that there were 2 impeachment notices that they approached Mr. Dhankhar with, both of which Mr. Dhankhar was extremely receptive about.
Absolutely, Akshita. You know, what is very startling is that this information that just minutes before Mr. Dhankar had said to the House at 4:07 that as far as the notice regarding Justice Shekhar Yadav is concerned, remember it made a controversial speech at a VHP event, and then he had been, the notice by the opposition had been given in December, and he said that he was investigating the entire matter as there was a dual signature of an opposition MP. But at about 5 p.m. he indicated to one of the opposition MPs in his chamber that 51 signatures were okay, and that meant that apart from the notice of the opposition on Justice Verma, the chairman was also readying to accept a notice on Justice Shekhar Yadav, and that was also completely an opposition's initiative, and that was revealed at 5 p.m. and he said the proceedings, he will make that announcement tomorrow, that is Tuesday. Today he was all set to make that announcement on Justice Shekhar Yadav that the notice given by the opposition, 51 signatures out of 55 have been okayed, and he could probably take a stand and admit that notice, and that would have been a huge embarrassment for the government, because there were 2 notices up in the upper house given by the opposition, and if already the Justice Verma notice, he had clarified that it will be a joint committee that will be set up with the Lok Sabha Speaker. So the second notice would also be taken up by the chairman, could probably spell a lot of embarrassment for the government. And at 7:30 p.m. we are told that Jairam Ramesh, and that's a matter of record, he's put out on his post also that he called the chairman, and the chairman said he's with family and was discussing matters of health. So something transpired between those 2-3 hours that changed his mind.
Something doesn't add up here, and I'd like to bring in Aishwarya Paliwal on this. Aishwarya, how is the government choosing to react to all of these reports that suggest that the government was simply unhappy with how Mr. Dhankar rushed through these 2 impeachment notices at the opposition's behest at that?
Well, Akshita, let me tell you, you will have silence coming in from the government, because one of the things that the government has been speaking about is that you need to follow procedures. Now, see, what can happen is MPs from either of the houses, but it has to be one house, either Lok Sabha or the upper house, that is Rajya Sabha. Either of them can actually go and speak with the speaker when we speak about Lok Sabha, or with the chairperson when we speak about Rajya Sabha. Simultaneously, these things happen. This is something which the government was not expecting. Close to 145 MPs signed the impeachment motion and went and met the Lok Sabha speaker, that is Om Birla. Simultaneously, in the Rajya Sabha also, we just heard the chairperson come out and say that he also had received more than 50 signatures of MPs. So it cannot happen that you have the impeachment motion in both the houses. It had to be one house. The only statement which came in after quite some time was the tweet from Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So I expect the government to be tight-lipped about it. But yes, the procedure was not followed, which is something which the government in subtle ways is pointing towards.
And even the Prime Minister's message, he usually very wholeheartedly praises veteran leaders, particularly someone who served at the position of the Vice President of the country. Seemed very withheld in his message to the former Vice President, essentially, to Mr. Jagdeep Dhankhar. I'll request Rahul, Gautam, Boshmi, Aishwarya and Piyush to stay with us. Just a quick look at this report on the day's developments. Jagdeep Dhankhar, yes, has stepped down from his post, citing health reasons. But the timing is what sparked a wave of political speculation, because like I said, he attended day 1 of the monsoon session as the Rajya Sabha chairman, had gone ahead and proposed exactly what he'd do for the next 24 hours, and then suddenly at 9:25, he goes ahead and resigns. Dhankhar was talking about serving a full term. Dhankhar was speaking about what he'd be doing in the next 24 hours. So what changed?
A stern Rajya Sabha chair who didn't think twice before taking on unruly opposition. Breathing fire, admonishing, and sometimes with his quips. So it came as a bolt from the blue when the firebrand Vice President abruptly called it quits. With a letter addressed to President Draupadi Murmu citing health concerns in the very first day of the stormy monsoon session. At the end of a hectic day, there was no farewell, no final speech, and no hint of what was to come.
The government is ready for discussion. The government is ready for comprehensive discussion. I will meet with the leaders, settle for a discussion, and I will ensure full-fledged discussion.
Until 4 p.m. on Monday, it was business as usual for the Vice President. Dhankhar attended the Parliament's Business Advisory Committee meeting to discuss winter session agenda. He accepted the notice against Justice Verma in the Rajya Sabha, catching the government unaware. Listing out the impeachment process in his last Rajya Sabha intervention on Wednesday, according to a government statement, Dhankhar was expected to be in Jaipur. But then came the shock. At 9:25 p.m. on Monday, Dhankhar abruptly resigned. Congress MP Akhilesh Prasad Singh was one of the last opposition leaders to meet the Vice President on Monday. His account only adds to the mystery.
अच्छे मूड में थे, ये भी मैं नहीं कह सकता कि थोड़ी भी तबीयत खराब जैसी कोई बात नहीं थी और हम सबको अचंभा में डालने वाला ये समाचार है और मुझे लगता है कि जरूर कुछ न कुछ और बात होगी.
Here's what makes the shock exit more intriguing. Just 12 days ago, Dhankhar had confidently declared that he would retire only in 2027 if there is no divine intervention.
I will retire at the right time. August 2027, subject to divine intervention.
Modi, in his farewell message, noted that Dhankhar had got many opportunities to serve the nation. Vice President's sudden move to quit has left behind a trail of unanswered questions and political speculation.
Not giving a farewell speech or not having a farewell function for someone like Mr. Dhankhar, who enjoys the limelight, is a bit surprising. So, it seems that he's going out in a fit of pique, that he's going out not happily. And the government also seems to have been taken a bit by surprise by the sudden resignation.
Dhankhar's firm resolve left President Murmu with no choice but to accept his resignation. Was it just about health, or was something much bigger at play? With Moshmi Singh, Bureau Report, India Today.
Okay, let's take a look at whether there was any animosity between the central government and Jagdeep Dhankhar that led to him taking the decision of stepping down, of resigning. Here's what we're picking up from our sources, that Jagdeep Dhankhar went ahead and announced the formation of a committee for the Justice Verma impeachment and spoke of 2 impeachment notices. Dhankhar went ahead yesterday and made the announcement on the basis of the fact that opposition signatures had reached him. But interestingly, while he went ahead and took that step, the government signatures weren't completed. And so essentially the messaging here was that Dhankhar seemed to have jumped the gun, which didn't go down well with the government because the government hadn't completed their signatures. And secondly, the news break that we got you about another impeachment notice. That's something, again, the government wasn't prepared for because this was an issue that the opposition wanted raised. Jagdeep Dhankhar gave them an audience, not just gave them an audience, but also admitted their plea for an impeachment notice, which is what the government was completely caught off guard by. And I'll bring in our reporters once again on this, taking this once again to Aishwarya Paliwal for more. Aishwarya, there is some suggestion that there was a sense of Dhankhar jumping the gun when it came to these impeachment notices, and the fact that yesterday we saw that playing out in the sense that, MPs were lining up at Rajnath Singh's residence for those last-minute signatures because it seemed the government wasn't ready for things to move that fast. It hadn't even kicked off in the lower house.
Well, definitely, this is something which the government was really caught off guard with, and we did see how it was Rajnath Singh's cabin right inside the parliament when those signatures were being taken. Now, the government on one side is saying that if the Rajya Sabha and if the chairperson are actually decided that they will be the one who will move the motion, then at least that should have been conveyed to the government, because on the other side, in the Lok Sabha, 145 MPs, and we all have seen those pictures which have come out, all of them standing with the Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla and handing over those pages where the signatures were there. So with regards to that, the government obviously was caught off guard. Miscommunication is also some things that we are now hearing. But yes, one thing is very, very clear. The government wanted proper procedure to follow, because this is not a small thing. Over the course of history, we have seen it's not almost every year that you see these kind of impeachment motions being moved. This is something which is very big, because it will be judiciary which will be very keenly looking at what the parliament is doing. So with regards to that, both the houses should have been on the same page. The government believes jumping the gun is something that, as the chairperson of the Rajya Sabha, Jagdeep Dhankhar, did, and information, at least one line of information, should have been given to the government, should have been given to the Lok Sabha speaker, so that things would have moved differently.
You know, another big mystery, and, you know, one point of conversation, I'll bring in Rahul Gautam also on this, is that Rahul, just hours before Jagdeep Dhankhar went ahead and resigned, he had actually met with senior Congress leaders. So the last official meeting that he'd held was with Mr. Jairam Ramesh, not anyone from the government. There was a conversation clearly only about these impeachment notices. So that was his clear priority, his first order of business in the monsoon session.
Well, Akshita, and you know, the meeting that you are referring to, that has been narrated in a very in a detailed manner by Jairam Ramesh on Twitter, wherein he said that how he met Mr. Dhankar at around 1 p.m. for this BAC meeting, and then after at 4:30 another round was supposed to be held, wherein JP Nadda and Kiran Rijiju, they both skipped this meeting. I must tell our viewers, and to this skipping or absence of these two important government people, Mr. Dhankar also expressed his displeasure and unhappiness. I must tell our viewers that it seems that all this started, way before monsoon session commenced. I can tell our viewers that Mr. Kiran Rijiju and Arjun Ram Meghwal, they both tried to reach out to both the LOPs, Mallikarjun Kharge and Rahul Gandhi, for impeachment of Justice Verma. Now, opposition wanted that if impeachment motion is to be brought in against Justice Verma, the same should be happening with Justice Yadav. They were pushing for impeachment motion against Justice Yadav. Now, no assurances were given by the government on this issue. However, we all know that two impeachment motions were emitted by Mr. Dhankar in the upper house. Now, this might have ruffled the feathers, because obviously it seems that at least the government was not, did not promise anything of this sorts of. But the upper house not just admitted the motion. In fact, they also said that we are in the process of verifying the signature. So clearly, it seems that Mr. Dhankar and government, they both were not on the same page, and maybe this was the reason why we saw this sudden announcement coming in last evening. The opposition MPs are saying that it really there's really more than what it meets the eye, and in fact,
those
many
reactions.
opposition
Rahul,
MPs
just stay
are
with
now
me
saying
before I
that,
bring in Maushami. Let's
why
take
was
a look
this
at some of those reactions from opposition leaders, the likes of Mamta Banerjee, Tejaswi Yadav, who are now questioning what has happened, what's led to Jagdeep Dhankhar suddenly resigning. Mamta Banerjee has called it a mystery, saying that Parliament will ask questions on exactly why Jagdeep Dhankhar has resigned. She claims that there was nothing wrong with his health. Tejaswi Yadav, meanwhile, has politicized this particular resignation, because he's in fact drawn a Nitish Kumar parallel, saying exactly how Jagdeep Dhankhar has resigned, Nitish Kumar will resign next.
एक चीज आप लोगों को तैयार करके देता है, आप करते हैं, इसका अंदर में और कुछ गड़बड़ है, देख लो. You cannot decide the political parties for what reason Mr. Dhankar resigned. You cannot decorate that line. I don't have any comments about it, because let us see the things. Let us watch. He is wealthy man. He is a healthy man. I think his health is absolutely okay.
मानसून सत्र के पहले दिन तो उन्होंने बहुत ठीक ठाक चलाया था, और अचानक से रात में ये सूचना मिली कि उन्होंने इस्तीफ़ा दे दिया है. अब दिया गया है कि लिया गया है, ये सवाल खड़ा होता है. चर्चाएं हैं और लोगों की जहन में भी है कि इस्तीफ़ा जो है लिया गया है. अब क्या कारण है, क्या नहीं कारण है, ये तो वही बेहतर बता सकते हैं. लेकिन हमने तो कल पूरा उनका देखा, वो तो स्वस्थ लग रहे थे और पूरा हाउस उन्होंने चलाया है. अगर ऐसी कोई बात आती तो वो सदन में भी रख सकते थे.
Okay, so the reactions that are coming in from the opposition, I'd like to bring in Maushmi Singh on this. One of the aspects that everyone's been talking about, Maushmi, is the fact that the opposition, which has constantly criticized Jagdeep Dhankhar, now is raising questions on his behalf as well. The likes of Mamata Banerjee, the Trinamool Congress, which has been perhaps the most critical of Jagdeep Dhankhar, considering he served as the governor of Bengal, now saying that what's happened is unfair, is uncalled for.
That's right, you know, Akshita, as the proverb goes, even 1 hour in politics is a long time. And here you can see that how those parties who had actually moved against Dhankar, saying that he should be impeached because he's thoroughly biased, are talking about how, something is more brewing in the government circles as far as his resignation is concerned, and he was fair. In fact, that praise has come from none other than Jairam Ramesh, who had many verbal duels. The chairman had moved a privilege motion against him and doubled that privilege motion when he received that reply from Jairam Ramesh. And similarly, whether it's the Trinamool Congress or the Aam Aadmi Party. But somewhere I think that the underlying fact is that they are trying to point out to the fact that it's a constitutional post. He is the vice president, and perhaps in the morning there was discussion about him at least giving a farewell speech. But once his resignation was accepted, it had come out very clearly that there will be no ceremony of farewells or a farewell speech that Mr. Dhankar would be giving. So clearly it has really raked up a political storm. We've been seeing allegations and counter allegations that have flown in thick and fast, and all I can say is that the monsoon session started with a very fiery start, but none had expected that such a big development would actually happen by the evening of the first day of the monsoon session.
And we're just getting started. Let's see what happens in the coming few weeks as well. Thanks very much, Maushmi, Rahul Gautam and Aishwarya Paliwal, for joining us here in India Today and breaking down every aspect, every angle to this massive, massive suspense over exactly what led to Jagdeep Dhankhar suddenly calling it quits, suddenly resigning as vice president. But let's talk about really what Mr. Dhankar's tenure as VP has looked like as far as his relationship with the central government goes. Yes, his tenure has been marked by controversies. Nobody can deny that. The opposition has repeatedly labelled him a biased, a pro-government leader. Now, there were, however, times when Jagdeep Dhankhar challenged the government, when Jagdeep Dhankhar defended judicial independence and even questioned the centre on farmer issues. Let's get to our next report where we track the rather dynamic relationship that he had with the centre, with the Modi government.
मुझे खुशी है कि इस महत्वपूर्ण कालखंड में उच्च सदन को आपके जैसा सक्षम और प्रभावी नेतृत्व मिला है.
This was less than 3 years ago, when an emotional Jagdeep Dhankhar was welcomed to the upper house of parliament by none less than the Prime Minister. Throughout his tenure, Dhankhar had been dubbed to be too close to the BJP, often towing the Modi government's line. His body language, his praise of the Prime Minister, his clashes with the opposition, both as Bengal governor and then as Rajya Sabha chairperson, all contributed to the pro-Modi label. Dhankhar had even stood firm with the centre on several issues while defending even the RSS in the house.
मैं आरएसएस का एकलव्य बन गया. और क्यों बना? तपस्वी लोग हैं, राष्ट्रभक्त हैं, समर्पण की भावना उत्कृष्ट है, दूसरे विचार को ग्रहण करते हैं. और मैं तो आश्चर्यचकित हूं कि खुद के अलावा देश की सोचते हैं, समाज की सोचते हैं.
He even faced an impeachment motion by the opposition in December last year, which was defeated. But this is just one side of Dhankhar's legacy. He had also surprised many, including the centre, when he took a strong position against the judiciary. He raised an alarm over what he called judicial overreach, but had also defended the independence of the judiciary. Even during the farmers' protest, Dhankar had urged the centre to speak to the farmers.
मैं खुद कृषक पुत्र हूं, मैं जानता हूं किसान क्या कुछ नहीं झेलता है। किसान से वार्ता अविलंब होनी चाहिए और हमें सबको जानकारी होनी चाहिए क्या किसान से कोई वादा किया गया था। माननीय कृषि मंत्री जी, आपसे पहले जो कृषि मंत्री जी थे, क्या उन्होंने लिखित में कोई वादा किया था? यदि वादा किया था तो उसका क्या हुआ?
So where did Jagdeep Dhankhar really stand? A man in constitutional office, perceived to be loyal to the regime, yet someone who hasn't shied away from calling out the government when he believed that democratic values or institutional boundaries were at stake. Is that ultimately what led to his abrupt exit from the chair? Bureau Report, India Today.
Okay, let's get you breaking news that's coming in. An Air India Hong Kong to Delhi flight caught fire upon landing in Delhi at the IGI airport. This is Air India 315 Hong Kong Delhi flight. We understand that this was a fire that broke out in the auxiliary power unit. That's the confirmation that's come in from Air India. They also confirmed that the fire had broken out right after the plane had landed and parked at the gate. And this fire broke out while passengers had just about begun disembarking from the plane. So there was a serious concern and extremely worrying that this kind of a fire was reported while passengers were still on board, still disembarking in the process of deboarding. Air India in its statement has said that there was some damage to the aircraft. Passengers and crew members, however, disembarked normally and are safe. Air India also confirming that the aircraft has been grounded for further investigations. But very concerning that we've been seeing a series of such incidents being reported across the country involving airlines, involving flights. The latest is that there was a fire in this particular aircraft. Fortunately, after touchdown in Delhi, we can also confirm for you that nobody was injured. All passengers, crew members managed to disembark, deboard safely. After claims by a whistleblower that he buried many bodies in Dharmasthala, there's been widespread outrage, anger across the country with one demand: for a fair, detailed investigation. A special investigative team is currently looking into these allegations. But there are more accounts that we've got here on India Today. Families coming out and speaking about how they lost their loved ones, got no details of their loved ones, and who had disappeared in Dharmasthala decades ago, in the exact period when this former sanitation worker claims that he actually buried dead bodies. Details in our report.
It's a big India Today impact. After days of relentless focus on the alleged Dharmasthala mass murders, the Karnataka government is finally taking strong action. Chief Minister Siddaramaiah has now ordered a full-fledged SIT probe into charges of disappearances, sexual abuse and murders. A special investigation team or SIT headed by top cop P. Mohanty will investigate the claims and ghastly crimes in and around the holy town of Dharamsthala. Advocates have now urged the government to set up a dedicated helpline for filing complaints.
To look into Dharmasthala issues, there has been a complaint, there has been a public hue and cry. Government has taken note of all this and then constituted an SIT to look into this entire thing.
This move is welcomed by Karnataka BJP.
SIT ರಚನೆ ಆಗಿರುವಂತದ್ದು ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಕೂಡ ಸ್ವಾಗತ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಧರ್ಮಸ್ಥಳದ ದೇವಸ್ಥಾನದವರು ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ನಾವು ಕೂಡ ಅದನ್ನು ಸ್ವಾಗತವನ್ನು ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ವಿಚ್ ಹಂಟಿಂಗ್ ಆಗಬೇಕು ಮತ್ತು ಧರ್ಮಸ್ಥಳ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬರುವಂತ ಜನ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬರುವಂತ ಹಿನ್ನೆಲೆ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು ಇದುವರೆಗೆ ನಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಬಂದಿದೆ ಅವೆಲ್ಲವೂ ಕೂಡ ಅಲ್ಲಿಯ ಸ್ಥಳೀಯರಿಗೆ ಮತ್ತು ಸ್ಥಳೀಯ ಪೊಲೀಸರಿಗೆಲ್ಲ ಗೊತ್ತಿದೆ.
long ignored patterns of missing women, unnatural deaths, murders, and sexual assaults in Dharmasthala, spanning more than 2 decades, will now be probed. The investigation began gaining traction after a whistleblower came forward with horrifying claims. He alleged that corpses of several women and girls, including school students, were found naked, bearing visible signs of violence and possible sexual assault. The whistleblower says he was threatened, warned that he too would be cut into pieces if he spoke out. Now families of the missing are breaking their silence. Sujata, whose daughter went missing during a college trip to Dharamsthala in 2003, says she was assaulted and silenced when she sought justice.
ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ನಾನು ಬಂದೆ ಹೊರಗಡೆ ಬಂದ ಮೇಲೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಇದು ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡು 4 ಜನ ಬಂದು ನಿಮ್ಮ ಮಗಳನ್ನು ತೋರಿಸ್ತೀನಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಕರ್ಕೊಂಡೋಗಿ ಕೈಯೆಲ್ಲ ರೂಮಲ್ಲಿ ಕೂಡ ಹಾಕಿ ಕೈಯೆಲ್ಲ ಕಟ್ಟ ಹಾಕಿಬಿಟ್ಟು ಕೈಯಲ್ಲಿ ಗಾಯಗಳಿದ್ದಾವೆ.
Amid this, Padmalata murder case has resurfaced in Mangaluru 39 years later. Padmalata, a resident of Bolyaru village in Dharamsthala, Belethangadi Taluk of Dakshin Kannada district, mysteriously went missing on December 22, 1986 after she left for her college. Despite an extensive search, she remained untraceable. Eventually, skeletal remains were found with her hands and feet tied. From ignored complaints to buried bones and silenced testimonies, every unanswered question now demands attention as the SIT steps in. Across nation, there is one hope: justice, truth, and dignity for the daughters who were possibly failed. With Sagay Raj, Bureau Report, India Today.
Okay, let me bring in Sagai Raj. He's joining us live from Bengaluru with the latest updates on the story. Sagai, as promised to our viewers, we continue our sustained focus on what's really happening in the Dharmasthala case and the investigation. There are now multiple people who've come out and spoken about how their loved ones have gone missing, Sagai, in that exact time period when this whistleblower claims he buried bodies.
Absolutely. We have seen a case registered in Kannur as well in Kerala where one of those persons had come out and said that there is a missing father of him who had a land dispute in Dharmasthala. And another story we just narrated which has happened in 1986 where Padmalata body was found in Dharmasthala after 39 days, 39 to 50 days. The police have discovered the body and handed over to the family. So there are many mystery stories like this where people are narrating every single day, and every single day people are coming out and talking about it just because they have some kind of hope after Karnataka government have appointed SIT. Their question is that who are the people who are responsible for these kind of death? Who are the people who are behind these kind of mysterious crime? So these are the questions which has been raised by the people who lost their loved ones.
With those details, we are very closely tracking the investigation because there is a resounding chorus to ensure that this is a fair, impartial, detailed investigation that takes place. Telangana. In a huge turnaround, the Telangana government has now cleared a premiere show as well as a temporary ticket price hike of 600 rupees for Pawan Kalyan's upcoming film Harihara Veeramallu, triggering political heat. Allegations also selective favoritism. Why is this? Well, essentially because the Revant government just months ago after the Allu Arjun Pushpa 2 Stampede controversy had said never again. We will no longer allow any such premiere shows. But this clearance has been given for a 9 p.m. premiere to take place on July 23rd, a day before the release of the film. The tickets have been priced at 600 rupees and this has been cleared by the Telangana government. Remember Chief Minister Revant Reddy speaking in the assembly right after the Pushpa 2 Stampede case in which one woman had died, had said there will be no more special privileges to the film industry and no film will be allowed to have any massive premieres. He had publicly slammed Allu Arjun then and said premiere shows, pricing exemptions, none of that will happen. Exactly those two have taken place right now.
తర్వాత మాకు రేట్లు ఇవ్వలేకపోతే ఇక్కడ వచ్చున్నారు. ఆయనే నాకు మన రోహిన్ రెడ్డి గారు ఆయన ఇప్పించారు. ఇమీడియట్గా ఈరోజు మనకి ఈ సభామూలంగా రేట్లు కూడా వచ్చాయి, స్పెషల్ షో కూడా వచ్చింది. థ్యాంక్ యూ చేస్తున్నాను.
देखिए, किसी मूवी का या किसी हीरो का विरोध करना ये ठीक नहीं है और हम किसी के विरोधी है भी नहीं, लेकिन हम रेवंत रेड्डी मुख्यमंत्री से यहाँ पूछना चाहते हैं कि आप जो पॉलिसी बनाते हैं विधानसभा में, आप जो रूल्स रेगुलेशन जो लगाते हैं विधानसभा में, पुष्पा 2 मूवी के समय पर क्या हुआ था ये सब जानते हैं. उसके बाद में आप ही विधानसभा में खड़े होकर ये कहते कि हम किसी प्रीमियर शो को परमिशन नहीं देंगे. तो इस मूवी को परमिशन देने का आपका क्या उद्देश्य है? हम किसी मूवी के और किसी हीरो के विरोधी थे, ना है, ना रहेंगे, लेकिन पॉलिसी का क्या है? पॉलिसी के बारे में हमारे रेवंत रेड्डी जी, तेलंगाना की जनता पूछ रही कि एक मूवी पर प्रतिबंध, दूसरी मूवी का प्रीमियर शो लगाना, परमिशन देना, ये कहाँ तक सही है? तेलंगाना की जनता पूछ रही, जवाब दीजिए.
आप बिजनेस कर लो, आप पिक्चर निकालो, पैसे कमाओ, सरकार से इंसेंटिव्स ले लो, सब्सिडीज ले लो, स्पेशल प्रिविलेज शूटिंग के लिए जो होना है वो मांगो, मगर किसी का हत्या होने के बाद, किसी का जान चलाने के बचाने के बाद, किसी का जान लेने के बाद आज स्पेशल प्रिविलेज मांगे तो ये सरकार में नहीं मिलने वाले. मैं जब तक मैं कुर्सी में रहता हूं तब तक नहीं देता हूं.
Let me bring in Abdul Bashir, joining us live from Hyderabad with more details on this. Abdul, how is the Revant government actually justifying this kind of a decision? We played out what Revant Reddy had said in the assembly just a few months ago. Now a complete U-turn.
Well, yes, this is a complete U-turn that we see that in 2024, after the Stampede incident during Pushpa 2 release and Shanti Theatre, Revant Reddy, the Chief Minister of Telangana, had stated that until he is the Chief Minister, he will not allow any premiere shows. But what we understand is that A.M. Ratnam, who is also a part of this particular movie, Harihara Veeramallu, he had clearly stated that a close aide of Chief Minister Revant Reddy, that is Rohin Reddy, had given them this particular order during that particular event that a special privilege show is going to be held with tickets priced at 600. So this is what is said to be a U-turn that has been taken. Now here, MLA Raja Singh has criticized, asking what exactly is the policy of the government. One side in the assembly, the government says that they will not give privileged shows, and now they are giving it. So this is what is the controversy that is going on. However, the Congress government has not reacted to this particular controversy that is going on, but an order has been released for a premiere show for this particular movie, that is Harihara Veeramallu, which is set to release. So 23rd is the day when the premiere show will be held with the tickets priced at 600 in the state of Telangana.
So tomorrow is when the premiere will happen, and with no reaction coming in from the government, looks like they're sticking to their stand of allowing this kind of a premiere show after promising it would never happen again. Thanks very much, Abdul, for joining us with all of those details. All right, let's move on to the latest updates from Tamil Nadu. We get you a quick check really on Tamil Nadu Chief Minister M.K. Stalin's health. Remember, he was taken to a hospital yesterday because he had complained of giddiness during his morning walk. Right after that, he's been undergoing a series of tests. Today, Chief Minister Stalin has been in hospital in a work-from-hospital mode, essentially continuing to discharge his duties as a Chief Minister, but has reportedly undergone a series of tests to identify exactly why he experienced that giddiness. That sequence that you see on your screens, that is the Chief Minister in his convoy moving from one hospital to another in Chennai for these tests to take place. Now, what we're hearing, and this is based on the last communication that we got from Apollo Hospitals, which is where Chief Minister Stalin currently is, they did say that he has been advised to remain in hospital for the next 3 days to ensure that all necessary medical tests are completed.
நல்லா இருக்காங்க. கடந்த ஒரு 2-3 மாதங்களா வந்து தொடர்ச்சியாக ரோட் ஷோலாம் பண்ணதால கொஞ்சம் அந்த கிரீனஸ் இருந்தது. மருத்துவர்கள் சிறப்பாக பார்த்துட்டு இருக்காங்க. ரொம்ப நல்லா இருக்காங்க. இந்த நிகழ்ச்சிக்கு வர முடியலன்னு அவங்களுக்கு கொஞ்சம் மனசில் இருந்துச்சு. பட் லைவ்ல ஃபுல் நிகழ்ச்சி பார்த்துட்டு பெண்டர் பேசினாங்க. ஒரு 2 நாட்கள் வந்து மருத்துவர்கள் வந்து ரெஸ்ட்ல இருக்க சொல்லியிருக்காங்க. அதனால் விரைவில் பூர்ண குணமடைஞ்சு
இன்றைய தினம் நான் வரும்போது எனக்கு கிடைத்த செய்தி, திமுக தலைவர் முதலமைச்சர் திரு ஸ்டாலின் அவர்கள் திடீரென்று உடல்நிலை சரியில்லாம மருத்துவமனையில் சேர்க்கப்பட்டு சிகிச்சை பெற்று வருகிறார். அவர் பூரண குணமடைய வேண்டும் என்று என் சார்பாக உங்கள் சார்பாக பிரார்த்தனை செய்கின்றேன்.
Okay, let me bring in Pramod Madhav for a quicker update of what's really transpired in the last 24 hours. Pramod, the last communication that we got from Apollo Hospitals was yesterday, with Chief Minister Stalin still remaining hospitalized right now. Any confirmation on what's really been happening, how long he will remain in hospital?
Well, the Deputy Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, Stalin, has given us some insight on what happened to the Chief Minister, Akshita. And just like you mentioned, the Chief Minister had a series of programs for yesterday as well. But however, like after finishing 2 programs, he had a complaint of giddiness, post which he was taken to Apollo Hospital. It was quite little surprising for everyone, because there were like a lot of programs that were scheduled for the day, especially in his constituency. But however, later the whole day he was over there. And now Udayanidhi Stalin has said that the doctors have definitely advised for another 2 more days of rest, and that along with that they will conduct a series of tests. So what happened in the morning is that around 7 a.m. he left from Apollo Greaves Road to Apollo Tenampet, which also specializes in a different kind of treatment over there. The Chief Minister was there for nearly 30 minutes to 1 hour, where another battery of tests were conducted, post which the Chief Minister went in his own car and came back to Apollo Greaves Road in his own car. And then he also tweeted that he's been constantly monitoring this kind of work in Tamil Nadu, especially about Ungaludan Stalin, a campaign in which they are conducting it for across the state of Tamil Nadu to make sure that the government servants actually reach the doorsteps of the people in helping them with various getting documents and such. And the Chief Minister said that he's constantly working on it. But we've come to know through the CMO's team that probably he might have to take for another 2 days rest, which means the Tirupur district program, which was actually scheduled for this week, will have to be have been postponed, Akshita.
Okay, so work continues, yes, but as far as these campaigns, ground visits are concerned, that's being pushed right now. Our wishes for a speedy recovery to the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, Mr. M.K. Stalin as well. Thanks very much, Pramod, for getting us that update.